Well, you just heard Congressman Himes on the Iran nuclear deal, and Himes also went nuclear when it came to Governor Chris Christie. Himes was livid that Christie talked about the murder of his former intern and how a broken system and quote-unquote liberal policies contributed to the death of Kevin Sutherland. Christie said the following, quote, "How much compassion did liberal policies show for the families of Kevin Sutherland? Sutherland was killed in the Washington Metro on July 4th. Christie said his murderer, arrested just 2 days earlier for a violent robbery, then released. Himes issued a statement that said in part, "To use Kevin's death to score political points is vile. The fear-mongering and thinly veiled racism evident in Christie's speech reveal he knew nothing about Kevin and his family. He should be ashamed." I asked the congressman about all of that. Very sad story. Talk about Kevin Sutherland, a 24-year-old former intern of yours who died way too soon. And I know that you went to the service and not only were close with the young man, but also his family as well.
Yeah, this was just one of these horrendous cases that you still scratch your head over and wonder how in God's name can it happen. You know, Kevin, who worked on my first campaign and interned in my office, wonderful young man, fresh out of American University and doing just amazing work in the political world that he's held in such high esteem, brutally murdered on a subway in broad daylight in downtown Washington, D.C. by somebody who was obviously either, on some kind of drug or truly deranged. And you just, the only son of a wonderful couple that are constituents and friends of mine. Again, it's one of these things that is hard to make sense of. The only redeeming quality being the outreach that everyone from senators, the governor, and everybody who knew the Sutherlands has just been extraordinary. But yeah, very, very tough couple of weeks for a lot of us.
And there, even after the tragic story, there was another headline that came out after it. I know Governor Christie, on a campaign stump, brought his name up and pointed to holes in the criminal justice system. I know that didn't sit well with you.
Yeah, no, it did not sit well with me. There is some element of decency that says that when a young man has been buried by his parents, you maybe let a little bit of time go by before you start using him as a political prop. And it frankly didn't surprise me that Governor Christie took that route. He is not a guy known for his empathy and sensitivity, but considering it was one of mine, I did make a pretty aggressive public statement. And again, there has to be some element of decency. We live in polarized times. All too often the rhetoric gets overheated, but that to me was a step way too far.
Finally, before I let you go, you always fascinate me because you didn't come into this world of politics the traditional way. You certainly had other options before you went in. Is it now, a few years into it and a few terms into it, what you've expected? And do you hold any more optimism that toxic, polarizing, partisan atmosphere, that there's any thought that'll change? People thought, 6 years ago, frankly, that all this, the heavens would open and because of the election things would change, and arguably it's gotten even more divisive. Where are you now, and where do you feel we're going to be going?
I still work in a very polarized, very political, almost sometimes even angry place, but I will tell you it's gotten better. It has gotten better in the real world, and by the real world I don't mean in the debate that happens in the chamber of the House of Representatives. Look, compared to where we were 6 years ago when the economy, when 10 million people were out of work and the stock market was half of what it is and people were losing their homes, we're in a lot better place today. And by the way, we're becoming energy independent. And by the way, we've got the most innovative workforce, on the planet. We've seen almost 1 million manufacturing jobs coming back to the United States, partly, of course, because of that energy. So I remain an optimist. We have a long way to go. There's still, the middle class is having a lot of trouble. People are having a really hard time doing what it takes to make somebody a middle class, which is educating their kids. So we've got big problems yet to solve. But I will, and this is the second thing I wanted to say, even in the House of Representatives, Washington is doing what it has done for 240 years, which is that the Tea Party, who came in 2010 and said everything's going to be different, we're going to shut down the government, we're going to slash the budget in half, they have lost a lot of their authority. You see John Boehner reasserting himself. You see deals getting done, like the doc fix, which was important to doctors, like the USA Freedom Bill that we talked about before, the trade bill, all of these things getting done in bipartisan fashion. So I'm not going to sing Kumbaya just yet, but I do think that the politics are becoming a little less toxic than they were.
Just in time for 2016 elections.
That's right. Everybody put their armor back on, right?
Well, Congressman, I certainly appreciate you making the time for us. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, coming up next, he insulted Mexicans, he insulted a war hero's war record, but he is still leading in the polls. We're going to bring in our political panel and ask why Donald Trump is connecting with a big portion of the Republican electorate.